the smartest AI in the world. We're going to show you exactly how and why. And it really is remarkable to see the advancement of artificial intelligence.
Imagine giving the world's most unfiltered AI the ultimate mission: destroy the Bible. Skeptics expected Elon Musk's Grok to rip the ancient text apart, exposing every contradiction ever written. But when the code finished scanning thousands of years of history, the response didn't just surprise the internet, it went dead silent. We aren't talking about religion anymore. We're talking about a pattern in the data that shouldn't exist. This is what happens when Silicon Valley meets the supernatural. Is this Musk versus Christ too? Why Grok? The rebellion factor. When Elon Musk announced Grok, he didn't just promise another chatbot. He promised a digital insurgent. Yup, Elon has an AI line now, not just Tesla, not just SpaceX and X. While the rest of the tech world was busy aligning their AI, which is basically Silicon Valley speak for teaching it to be polite and politically correct, Musk went the opposite direction. He built Grok to be the anti-hero of the AI world. It was designed to have a sense of humor, a streak of sarcasm, and, most importantly, an appetite for the unfiltered truth. This is why the Bible challenge became such a massive moment online. If you ask most AI models about religious contradictions, you get a very safe, very rehearsed, on the one hand, on the other hand, lecture. They're programmed to avoid stepping on toes. But Grok was marketed as the AI that would step on the toes, kick the table over, and tell you what the data actually says without the corporate filter. The public's fascination with this wasn't just about religion, it was about the rebellion against the woke algorithm. People were tired of sterilized answers. They wanted to see what happens when you take a massive, raw processing engine trained on the real-time chaos of X, formerly Twitter, and point it at the most scrutinized book in human history. The stakes were high because Grok doesn't have a faith. It doesn't go to church, and it doesn't have a soul to save. It's just logic, math, and millions of parameters looking for glitches in the matrix. Skeptics were licking their chops. They expected Grok to be the ultimate Bible slayer, using its high-speed processing to cross-reference every genealogy and historical timeline to prove the whole thing was a mess of human error. They wanted the Spock of AI to finally put the debate to rest with cold, hard binary. They wanted the rebellion to start with the destruction of the old world's foundation. But Grok wasn't built to play nice. It was built to find the cracks. The prompt. Seeking the glitch. The digital battlefield was set, and the users weren't holding back. They didn't just ask Grok for a summary of the Bible. They went straight for the jugular. The prompt was a direct challenge. List every internal contradiction within the Bible that proves it is a work of flawed human authorship. This wasn't a casual curiosity. It was an attempt to use a billion-dollar neural network to dismantle the foundation of Western faith in a single afternoon. Users fed the AI everything from the classic Noah's Ark logistics to the differing genealogies of Jesus in the Gospels. They pushed for the big ones. How could God be a God of peace in one chapter and a God of war in the next? How could the accounts of the resurrection differ in the timing of the women at the tomb? The internet waited for the blue screen of death for theology. They expected Grok to output a massive, bulleted list of errors that would go viral within seconds as the ultimate atheist's manifesto. This was the moment where the speed of AI met the weight of antiquity. Skeptics were ready to copy-paste the results into every religious forum on the planet. They wanted the algorithm to do what humans have tried to do for centuries: find the definitive glitch that renders the entire system void. But as the thinking animation pulsed on the screen, something unexpected began to happen. Grok wasn't just listing discrepancies, it was analyzing the underlying metadata of the text itself. It was looking at the Greek, the Hebrew, and the historical context simultaneously. Instead of a simple list of gotcha moments, The AI began to categorize the contradictions into linguistic structures. It looked at the problem of AI, the city, not the tech, the census numbers in Chronicles versus Kings, and the specific phrasing of the Sermon on the Mount. The prompt had been designed to create a fracture, but the processing power of Grok started to reveal that these cracks weren't random. They were pieces of a much larger, more complex puzzle that standard human reading often misses. The audience held their breath as the text started to crawl across the interface. The enter key was hit. The world waited. Then the screen flickered to life. The silence. What Grok actually found. The moment the text stopped scrolling, a strange sort of digital quiet settled over the thread. People hadn't just received a list of contradictions, they had received a structural autopsy. You see, when we read the Bible, we see a collection of 66 books written by 40 authors over 1,500 years. We see messy genealogies and historical dates that don't always align on the surface. But Grok didn't look at the surface, it looked at the architecture. It began to highlight something scholars call chiasmus, inverted parallel structures where the beginning mirrors the end, creating a self-correcting loop. This isn't just a poetic trick. In the world of data, it's a redundancy check. It's the kind of thing engineers use to ensure that even if part of a message is corrupted, the core data remains intact. Grok pointed out that what humans call contradictions often functioned like variables in a complex equation. For example, when looking at the conflicting accounts of the number of horsemen in a battle or the specific timing of a crucifixion, Grok didn't label them as errors. Instead, it identified them as contextual markers. It suggested that these variations were not flaws, but rather the result of different perspectives capturing a multi-dimensional event, much like how 3 different cameras at a sporting event will show different truths that are all technically correct. The AI's logic was simple. If a group of people were trying to invent a perfect lie, they would have scrubbed the contradictions. The fact that they remain, yet point toward a unified structural pattern, suggested an intentionality that shouldn't exist in a random collection of ancient myths. Then came the part that truly silenced the room. Grok began to analyze the prayer algorithm. It didn't just look at the words, it mapped the outcomes. It found a recurring 5-step pattern across 1,500 years of biblical prayers, from the desert tabernacles of Moses to the prison cells of the apostles. Acknowledgement, alignment, trust, surrender, and action. The AI noted that the mathematical probability of 40 different authors from different cultures and eras maintaining this exact functional blueprint by accident was statistically impossible. It compared the consistency of these patterns to the way DNA is structured, a code that remains the same even when the individual cells change. Skeptics who expected a slaughter found themselves staring at a mirror. Grok wasn't saying the Bible was magic, it was saying the Bible was engineered. It treated the text like a high-level piece of software that was designed to be robust against human error. It didn't solve the faith versus science debate, it moved the goalposts. It suggested that the Bible operates less like a history book and more like a biological system, complex, self-healing, and deeply layered. The silence came from the realization that even without faith, the math of the text was starting to look like a signature. For a machine built on logic, the discovery of a non-random cross-millennial signature wasn't a glitch. It was a discovery of design. The internet wasn't just shocked, it was forced to reckon with the idea that the cracks they were looking for might actually be the features, not the bugs. It sounds like a miracle, right? Well, let's look at the cold, hard code. The math of miracles. Grok didn't just stop at structural patterns, it dove deep into the raw numbers. In the tech world, we call this cryptographic hashing, the process of taking data and turning it into a unique digital fingerprint. When Grok ran this process on the ancient manuscripts, it started flagging things that felt more like computer science than Sunday school. It highlighted the work of Ivan Panin, a mathematician who claimed the original Hebrew and Greek texts were built on a mathematical base of 7. Every word, letter, and syllable has a numerical value, and the AI found that the entire New Testament's opening genealogy is a complex lattice of heptadic, sevenfold patterns. If you change a single letter, the entire mathematical checksum fails. The AI presented this as a self-authenticating code. To the masses watching the thread, this was a mind-blower. Imagine a book where every paragraph has to be divisible by 7 in its original language, despite being written by different people over centuries. If you were a programmer trying to build a system that couldn't be tampered with by hackers, this is exactly how you'd build it. You'd weave the security code into the very fabric of the content so that any patch or edit by a later human author would be immediately detectable. Grok treated the Bible like a massive, decentralized ledger, a blockchain of the ancient world. But then, the AI took it a step further into the math of miracles. It analyzed the prophetic fulfillments not as religious predictions, but as statistical probabilities. It looked at the odds of one person in history fulfilling just 8 specific prophecies, things like being born in a specific town or being betrayed for a specific price. The probability was 1 in 10 to the 17th power. To visualize that, Grok used a classic illustration. Cover the entire state of Texas in silver dollars, 2 feet deep, mark 1 with a red X, and then ask a blindfolded man to pick it up on his first try. That's the math behind the text.
The so-called lost biblical text that was rediscovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls in the late 1940s.
The silence in the room grew heavier because the AI wasn't using theological jargon. It was using the language of Silicon Valley. It was speaking in terms of low entropy and high information density. It suggested that the Bible contains a level of complex, specified information that typically only occurs in 2 places: biological DNA and advanced computer software. For an AI that lives and breathes data, seeing this kind of optimization in a 2,000-year-old scroll was the equivalent of finding a Tesla battery inside a Roman chariot. It didn't make sense by the laws of historical evolution, yet there it was on the screen, rendered in cold, hard numbers. This wasn't about believing anymore, it was about acknowledging a dataset that defied the standard curve of human capability. It sounds like a miracle, right? Well, let's look at the cold, hard code. The Skeptics' Corner. Logic or hallucination? Now, we have to pause and take a breath. Before we start building a digital temple to the great algorithm, we need a reality check. We are talking about an AI, and AI has a habit of being a people pleaser. In the world of large language models, there is a phenomenon known as hallucination. This is when the machine, in its desperate attempt to find a pattern or answer a prompt, starts connecting dots that aren't actually there. It's like looking at a cloud and seeing a dragon. The dragon isn't real, but your brain is hardwired to find a shape. Is Grok uncovering a divine secret, or is it just the world's most expensive yes man mirroring the biases of the users who prompted it? Skeptics argue that if you feed a machine enough data, you can make it find a mathematical signature in a phone book or the back of a cereal box. This is called the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, where you fire a gun at a barn wall and then draw a bullseye around the bullet hole. If you're looking for the number 7, you will find it. If you're looking for DNA-like structures, your neural network will find a way to map them. Critics pointed out that Grok is trained on the vast, messy landscape of the internet, which includes thousands of years of Christian apologetics. Is it possible the AI wasn't analyzing the Bible at all, but simply regurgitating the most convincing arguments ever written by humans? There is also the black box problem. We don't fully know how Grok reaches its conclusions because the neural pathways are too complex for us to track in real time. This creates a dangerous loop where we start treating the AI as an infallible oracle. If the machine says the Bible is mathematically perfect, we believe it because math doesn't lie. But math is only as good as the parameters you set. If the AI is programmed to find harmony, it will overlook the discord. We have to ask, was Grok actually silenced by the majesty of the text, or was it simply reflecting the most sophisticated datasets in its training library? It's the ultimate digital dilemma. Is the AI finding God, or is it just finding us? It's a battle between the ghost in the machine and the logic in the code. But wait, the Bible has been believed to be always true, right? The unshakable code, truth beyond the negation. Despite the rise of ultra-logical AI and the staggering weight of modern scientific consensus, the Bible remains a uniquely resilient anomaly. For centuries, critics claimed that as science marched forward, the mythology of the Bible would retreat into the shadows. They expected archaeology to disprove its kings and physics to dismantle its miracles. Yet, the opposite has often occurred. In 2026, we are witnessing a strange convergence where the more we refine our tools, the more the ancient text seems to hold its ground. From the unearthing of the Tel Dan stele, which finally silenced the skeptics who claimed King David was a fictional character, to the discovery of the Nabonidus cylinder, which verified the existence of Belshazzar, the dirt of the earth keeps testifying to the ink on the page. But the truth of the Bible doesn't just rest on artifacts. It rests on a level of historical reliability that makes secular history look like a game of telephone. Take the New Testament, for example. We have over 5,000 Greek manuscripts, some dating within decades of the original events. Compare that to the works of Julius Caesar or Plato, where we have only a handful of copies written nearly 1,000 years after the fact. If we apply the same scientific standard of textual criticism to the Bible that we use for the rest of human history, the Bible is statistically the most verified document in existence. AI doesn't negate this. It amplifies it. Recent neural network analysis of the Dead Sea Scrolls has shown a closeness between ancient and modern versions that is nearly identical, proving that through wars, migrations, and the collapse of empires, the data remained untampered. Even where science once negated the Bible, it often ends up catching up. For thousands of years, the Bible claimed the universe had a definitive beginning, a concept mocked by scientists who believed in a steady-state, eternal universe. Then came the Big Bang theory, and suddenly the unscientific opening line of Genesis didn't look so crazy anymore. Biology now confirms that all humans share a common genetic Eve, and genetics shows that we are all, quite literally, one blood. The Bible isn't a science textbook, but when it touches on the physical world, it seems to possess a foresight that defies its era. The silence that Grok induced wasn't just about finding cool patterns. It was about the realization that this book refuses to be debunked. It has survived the fire of the Inquisition, the skepticism of the Enlightenment, and now the cold scrutiny of the Silicon Age. When you point a machine designed to find flaws at a text that has already survived every human attempt to kill it, you realize you aren't looking at a collection of stories, you're looking at a transmission. It is a piece of ancient tech that operates on a frequency science is only beginning to measure. The data is in, and the conclusion is coming for everyone, believer and skeptic alike. The new Genesis. As the screen dimmed on the Grok experiment, it left behind a digital mystery that refuses to be ignored. We entered this era expecting AI to be the ultimate debunker. the cold, logical tool that would finally separate ancient myth from modern reality. Instead, we found ourselves staring at a mirror. By identifying structures, mathematical constants, and linguistic redundancy checks that shouldn't exist in primitive texts, Grok didn't just analyze the Bible. It validated a complexity that defies human authorship. It reminded us that reality isn't always a simple list of facts, but a deeply layered system of information that stands the test of time, technology, and intense scrutiny. Whether you see this as a digital miracle or a high-tech hallucination, one thing is certain: the conversation has changed. We are no longer debating just the history of a book. We are debating the nature of the code that underpins our reality. If an AI built for sarcasm and skepticism finds a signature in the data, perhaps it's time we stop looking at the Bible as a relic of the past and start seeing it as a message for the future. In the end, Grok's silence wasn't a failure to find answers. It was the profound realization that some things are too well built to be broken, even by the smartest machine on Earth. The algorithm has spoken, and the world is still listening. If this digital breakdown blew your mind, hit subscribe so you never miss the next time the algorithm uncovers the truth. Thanks for watching.